Which of New Balance's daily trainers should you buy, the Rebel or the 1080? Today, we break it down. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're reviewing the Rebel versus the 1080, and if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the video when you get a second, as I put a lot of time and effort into these. And if you've been a viewer for a while, but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today, and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. Now, before we get into the details of these shoes, some quick disclaimers and disclosures are that I did receive the Rebel V5 for free for the purpose of review. That being said, I was not paid. I'm not given any talk tracks, talking points. I'm not obligated to include it in any specific content. No one watches the videos beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. As far as the 1080, I believe I received it from New Balance as well, but if I'm being honest, I can't remember. I buy a lot of shoes and I receive a lot of shoes. So if I did, same thing, I'm never paid for the reviews, never asked or required to include them in any specific content. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. So these are two of New Balance daily trainers, and they kind of fit in similar overall categories, but when I look at daily trainers, there are typically your up-tempo daily trainers, they're your max cushion daily trainers, and then there's your, your standard daily trainers. And even within that, you may have like standard versus premium daily trainer, right? There's all these different subcategories. So at its root, these are both daily trainers, and if you go online and you look, they're probably both going to say daily trainer on New Balance's website. That being said, their intended use is a little bit different. The Rebel line is going to be that lightweight daily trainer series, which is going to be used for, speed workouts where you don't necessarily want a carbon plated or plated shoe. So this is going to be a shoe that you can use daily, yes, but it is geared a little bit more towards performance, versus the 1080 line is really geared more towards comfort, more towards just standard daily training, maybe easy miles, long runs. And as such, that's how we're going to be addressing or talking about these shoes today. So from a price standpoint, the Rebel comes in at a crazy affordable $140. Meanwhile, the 1080 comes in at $165. Quick plug, both the models from last year for both of these are on sale and are likely to be pretty good deals overall. Now from a specs perspective, the Rebel comes in at 7.5 ounces and 225 grams. Meanwhile, the 1080 comes in at 9.9 ounces, which is 281 grams. So there is a pretty significant weight difference. And again, that goes towards the Rebel being more lightweight, more geared towards fast running, versus the 1080 being more geared towards that comfort, kind of plush overall experience where you're not as concerned about the weight. From a stack perspective, you have 35 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for a 6mm heel to toe drop on the Rebel, and then you have 39 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot, and a 6mm drop on the 1080. From a fit perspective, they actually fit fairly similar in these iterations, so I think lengthwise, I would say they both fit true to size. I wear a 10.5 and I didn't feel like I needed any more length in either of these shoes. And then I would say both of these shoes fit wide foot friendly to the point where I would say maybe the 1080 is actually like real official wide, and then the Rebel V5 is a little bit more streamlined of a fit, so I would say wide toe box, wide heel, but maybe more of a standard midfoot. Either way, I believe you should be good with your normal size unless you are narrow footed, in which case these shoes frankly just might not be for you. Now moving to the uppers, in the Rebel V5, you have a Phantom Fit upper, which is going to be really, really lightweight, really breathable, really airy. You do have some light cushion there in the heel, and then a very thin tongue that is fully gusseted and locked in for performance. Overall, it's very comfortable. It is really, really nice, but it's geared more towards lightweight and more of that streamlined fit. Then with the 1080 V14, you have that engineered woven upper. It's much, much thicker and much, much warmer overall than the Rebel counterpart. You have some nice cushioning there in the heel, and I don't know what that material is, but that texture kind of there in the heel, you can kind of see a little bit. It's very, very plush. It's very, very comfortable. It's made to be a more just, again, overall premium, comfortable, nice experience. The tongue as well is fully gusseted, so you have some good lockdown there, but you have that thicker, I would say that's mid to heavy weight in the tongue. And the 1080 is known to be like a really warm shoe overall, and so while I do think this is maybe better than some previous models, still very, very warm, especially in comparison to the Rebel. From a lockdown perspective, I would say both of these do a really, really good job. The Rebel probably edges it out just a little bit in that area though. Moving to the midsoles, you have the Fuel Cell midsole in the Rebel, which is a PIBA EVA blend. PIBA, if you're unfamiliar, is a racing foam. So this is made to be responsive, but this foam is also very soft, very squishy. Meanwhile, in the 1080, you have Fresh Foam X, and it doesn't feel maybe quite as squishy in hand, but when you actually run and stand in these shoes, to me, they are some of the squishiest, softest overall shoes on the market. In fact, I would go as far as to say they are the squishiest, at least to me, and how I experience them on foot. Now, the key difference between these two foams, again, comes down to the fact that the Rebel is a racing foam, or has some racing foam in there, and so it's made to be more responsive. It's made to go fast. Meanwhile, the Fresh Foam X is made for comfort. It's made for kind of just supporting your foot and being really, really soft underfoot and giving you a very comfortable overall ride. And both of these midsoles do that perfectly in my mind. Now, neither of them are going to be inherently stable because both of them have really soft foams underfoot. And so while I wouldn't say they're inherently unstable and they have fairly wide bases to kind of support that, if you are someone that overpronates, they're probably not going to be the shoe for you. And you may want to look at a stability option. Even if you are set on New Balance, these just probably aren't the way to go. Moving to the outsoles, I'm not 100% sure. New Balance doesn't necessarily name their outsole compounds, but the outsole on the 1080 is going to be a little bit thicker. Really, I think that looking at durability, the 1080 is supposed to be built to be more durable. Meanwhile, speed-oriented shoes aren't supposed to last quite as long. You know, that being said, the irony of that is, you know, I probably have about 30 to 40 miles, probably around 40 miles on my 1080s, and the heel there is already wearing down quite a bit. Now, luckily, it is a thick outsole, and it actually gives that foam a little bit of structure, which is nice, because I think without a firmer, thicker outsole slab there, this would feel like way, way too squishy. But with the Rebel, I do think you get better overall traction, better overall grip with a more aggressive overall outsole pattern, and it's not quite as thick, so it's going to be, you know, a little bit thinner overall for the most part. I don't think that the 1080 has bad traction, to be clear. I just think that the Rebel edges it out. Now, as far as my pick, you know, for me, the 1080 is just a little bit too soft for daily training. You know, it's really more of a recovery shoe for me. It has to be restricted to fairly shorter runs. Otherwise, it actually irritates my feet. But like overall feel of the shoe, it's super plush, super premium, super comfortable. So a lot of people, including actually my dad, really likes to not just run in the 1080, but actually use it as a travel shoe where he's going to be walking around a lot. For me though, what's really interesting with this iteration of the Rebel is I feel like it became a little bit closer just to kind of the more controlled overall feel underfoot to a standard daily trainer. So for me, if I'm comparing these shoes, I don't have a need for the 1080 in my mind. Like, I feel like the Rebel V5 can do everything the 1080 does, plus some, and does it better overall. So for me, it's not a competition, but I do think it comes down to the overall sensation that you want. And you could have them in a rotation together too, right? So to be clear, this is more of a lightweight trainer, but I just feel like this year's edition kind of bleeds more into standard daily training compared to previous editions. So for me, again, Rebel V5, but the 1080 is one of the most popular shoes on the market for a good reason, so you really can't go wrong with it. So just some final thoughts. New Balance is really changing up some things in 2025. I know some people aren't a huge fan of maybe the new aesthetic of the Rebels as well as the new Elites that are coming out soon that I'm really hoping to be able to get my hands on. For me, I actually like the look of the V5. This plum color has really grown on me. When I first saw it, I wasn't a huge fan, but having it on foot, having it in hand, I genuinely enjoy this shoe. Do I enjoy it as much as the V4? Not necessarily, because the V4 for me was a really, really fun kind of crazy shoe that it made me want to go fast. This one doesn't make me want to go fast as much, but I can go fast in it, and I really appreciate the overall extra versatility that it provides. So it's hard to say, I don't feel like it was necessarily a huge upgrade to the V4, but I also don't feel like it was a downgrade, because there's just so many things that, despite New Balance's effort, they actually wanted to try and make very minimal changes to the shoe, but I actually think the changes they made were pretty significant in my mind. And so overall, I like it. I'm holding off judgment. I think aesthetically, the Elite, the Super Comp Elite or SC Elite that's coming out later this year, I do agree that it looks more daily trainer-esque than racing shoe-esque. And coming from last year's Elite, right, which was a really fun overall design, I can see why people are maybe frustrated, but what I care about more personally is how it performs. And so, you know, the goal of the Elite this year in 2025 was to make it more race-like, more streamlined. You know, they heard a lot of people say that, hey, this was a really awesome shoe that was very friendly to a lot of foot strikes, and, you know, it was kind of a nice overall, like, not quite an aggressive racing option, and they wanted to make an aggressive racing option. They didn't want to make this a super accommodating shoe. And I know that's frustrating for some people who maybe don't feel quite ready for a full carbon fiber plated shoe, and so they're looking for shoes or a carbon fiber plated shoe that is a little bit more accommodating, more pace versatile, more friendly to a variety of foot strikes and paces. And, you know, we saw Hoka go away from kind of the Cielo X1 as well, which was a lot more friendly, a lot more stable. But, like, I think people need to realize that the super shoe for a brand is the shoe that their top premium athletes race in and are competing for podiums with. So it needs to be aggressive. They're not catering it necessarily towards the general public. To be clear, it's not that I don't think there shouldn't be options for the general public, but I think most brands provide that in the form of their super trainer or unplated trainers as well. So thinking of the SC trainer, thinking of the Endorphin Speed, right? Thinking of the Skyward X, there are models out there that are made to be inherently more stable, and technically, yes, they are made to be training companions to super shoes, but at the same time, that is kind of the perfect shoe for a lot of people who are dipping their toes in the water, who want something fast, but not necessarily but they don't necessarily want to fully commit to full-blown super shoe. So I get the frustration, but at the end of the day, they are made to try and compete for world major and major races and Olympic podiums. Gotten kind of sidetracked here, but kind of reeling it back in. So again, aesthetically, I don't really get the hate for the V5. Maybe the colorway I can understand, and I think with the better colorway, maybe people will like it more. But I actually really like this one. And the SC Elite V5 that will be coming out later this year, again, holding off any judgment until I have it on foot and see how it performs. Those who have tried it seem to like it, and so I'm generally fairly optimistic that, you know, it's going to be a good super shoe. And I still don't foresee it being too overly aggressive just from the geometry that I'm seeing in pictures. So anyway, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, leave a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you enjoyed about today's video or what I could be doing better, as well as if there's other shoe comparisons that you would like to see. And just to wrap us up, I'll leave you with a question as always, which is, what is the New Balance shoe that you're most looking forward to in 2025? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody.